Go. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out today. My name is Matt Caranante. I'm Senior Director of Membership and Events here at BOMA New York. We're hosting this webinar as um, a method to demystify the process for submitting for a Pinnacle Award. We have a couple people here that will run us through the process, and they'll take you through from kind of soup to nuts from till you click submit. If you have any questions, please hold them to the end. You can pop them in the chat if you want. We'll definitely have some time for some Q&A at the end. I'm going to introduce, first of all, I have Kliti Nuri here. I was Director of Association Services with BOMA International. He'll run through the second part in the actual portal. You'll have a chance to take a look at that. But first, I'd like to throw it over to Sherrie Staalesen from Senior Events Manager for Berman Group, who helped us out here for the Pinnacle Awards. She and I are your go-to people for your nominations. Any help you need, we're here to help out. Like I said, hold those questions to the end. And right now, I'd like to throw it over to Sherrie.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Thanks all for joining. I'm just going to share my screen here and we'll go right through the process. So the Pinnacle Awards application process starts with receiving this nomination kit. You've probably all seen this email that's gone out to click to view the nomination kit to apply. So this is what the first part looks like. All nominations must be received by Wednesday, May 20th. That's the current deadline. My contact information is here, along with my colleague, Jeannie, who works alongside me on the Berman Group side for the event. These are all the different nomination categories that we're accepting this year. This is what the form looks like. So when you're filling out this form, please make sure that you include, if you're doing multiple nominations, make sure that you include each person's contact information, the nomination category per the last slide that we were just reviewing, the name of the owner and manager, a phone number, and an email address. We want to also know who is nominating the individual or the building, and their contact information as well. So we know who to follow up with to make sure we get all of the information needed for the nomination process. Once that's filled out and submitted, then we proceed with the following steps. So there's two different types of categories. There's individual categories and building categories. So for the individual categories, these are for individual people, manager of the year, chief engineer. We split this into two different categories this year: director of security, security professional, director of fire life safety professional, and janitorial professional. So these are all individuals who would be nominated. For individuals, this is the process. We'll be scheduling video interviews to take place in June, July. So once we get all of the materials that we'll go through today, then we schedule time for individuals to go to the BOMA New York office. We will circulate interview questions ahead of time. We'll have a professional videographer there that'll film the interview process. It'll take about 15 to 20 minutes in the office. And then what we do from there is we work with our professional videographer to clip down the best 30 to 60 seconds of each individual nominee. And we create these beautiful videos that are seen during the live event in September. So we'll be following up to coordinate the video interview with each of the individual people who come in as nominees. Documents that'll be needed for individuals include a professional biography, a vendor list, profile form, 3 letters of recommendation, a professional headshot that we can use for marketing purposes for the event, a questionnaire form filled out, a few candid photos of you in your building at work. We use this, incorporate this into the video that we just mentioned. And those are the materials needed for individuals. So I'm just going to go through exactly the outline that we need for this. So for the biography, it needs to be submitted in this format. So the first paragraph should be a summary of the nominee's current role. Second paragraph, a summary of past roles and experience. Third paragraph, quotes from the nominee's letters of recommendation. And then the fourth paragraph is a summary of the nominee's education. And then we have some abstract information. I'm going to go to the next page. So this is how you'll see we utilize this information. We create a book that is provided at the event, and each nominee has their own page to highlight them. So this is an example of the security professional category. We have the name of the individual that was nominated, their building. This is on the left-hand side, the summary in the paragraph format that we just described, a headshot, and then the abstract information. So we need to know the years in the industry, experience, and education. So we do a quick blurb there. So this is why we need it submitted to us in that format. So that way, when we put together this journal, that each person has a page where the content fits correctly. If we receive, multiple pages and multiple paragraphs that don't fit when we create the page, then we have to cut things down. So that's why it's really important to follow those guidelines. This is an example of what the vendor list that we'll be sending to each nominee looks like. It is a spreadsheet that we ask for you to fill out with your vendor contract names and contact information. We use this for marketing purposes, so we highlight people that support you. And then we also reach out to these people to make sure that they have all the information to encourage them to support our nominees and attend the event. So that's the purpose of the vendor form. The profile form is, this is an outline. It just gives some information to make sure that we're collecting all the information from our nominees properly for our marketing purposes. So this is a form that'll just need to be filled out with information. And then we do need 3 letters of recommendation. So this is just a visual, so you can see, you just need to make sure that you have 3 of them to make sure you comply with what is needed for the individuals. These are some examples of headshots. We just need to make sure, per the example on the prior page, that there's enough space around the person's head, and that is a professional headshot with a high resolution, so we can use this for marketing purposes and in the event materials. And then we also do need a resume. All this information is submitted to the judges, so they do review the forms filled out, the resume, the letters of recommendation, and this is how they review and determine who gets the judging for the nominees. This is an example of a questionnaire. So there is a specific questionnaire for each category. Ask a few questions to submit. So this will need to be filled out and returned as well. This is part of the judging process. And then this is an example of the candid photos that I was mentioning. This is included in the video once it's produced. So that is a summary of the individual categories and what information we'll need to collect for the event. And now we'll move to the building categories. So these are all the building categories, and the nomination process for buildings is a little bit different, and we'll go through the process here. So for the marketing side of things for the event, we will need a building description, a vendor list, a profile form, and a high resolution building image. This is an example of a page for what the building nominee pages look like. We'll need 3 to 4 paragraphs with a description of the building. And we'll need 20 building vendors to be listed and highlighted on the page for the building. And we also use a high resolution image here. This is the same vendor list that we use for the individuals. So making sure that we have contact information and information for vendors here. We do just ask, because of the size and how many vendors we can fit on the page for the journal page, that you highlight 20 vendors that are your preferred vendors to be listed on the page. You can list as many vendors as you would like, but there is a max capacity for 20 to fit onto the page when we create the graphic there. This is a profile form, so this will also need to be filled out as well. And then this is an example of a high resolution building image that is included in the page, and materials for marketing the event. And then I will, in just a moment, turn it over to Kliti to go through the BOMA International portal and the process for building. So for buildings, the materials that I just went through is what we need for marketing and events purposes. For the judging process, each building needs to log into the portal and go through the process that Kliti will describe in just a moment, uploading information, following all the criteria based on the category you're applying for. So each category has specific, unique information that they need. Sorry about that. So just making sure you really just pay attention to exactly what is needed for all of the information, following all steps and uploading documents. There's documents that are going to be needed for the judging process. For this year, it's the 2027 year when you go to apply in the portal. So that's just a really important piece to make sure you're applying under the correct year. And then new construction and hospitality are the two new categories, or the two categories that don't use the portal. So you'll follow the document with the criteria, put together your own PDF or multiple pages, and submit that information to me and my team to make sure that we have that for the judges. Those are the only two categories that don't use the portal as far as building categories go, but all other categories do use the portal. Just want to highlight a couple of timeline deadline items. Wednesday, May 20th is when all nomination applications are due. So that was the first page that we noted here, just noting who you're nominating, what their category is, what their contact information is. That is needed by May 20th. Friday, June 26th is when all submissions are due. So all the materials and criteria that we went over here, that's when the actual content is due to us by June 26th. In June and July is when we will be conducting the video interviews at BOMA's offices. So we'll be coordinating those meetings with the individuals. Once all the material and all submissions are complete, that's when the judges will have time in August to conduct interviews with individuals in the buildings, as well as site visits to see your building. So that'll happen over the summer in August. And then September is when the event takes place, at September 24th. So all materials will be finalized and awards will be produced for the event. And then we'll see everyone on September 24th at Pier 60. And then the only other highlight here is January 15th is the BOMA 360 deadline. It's required to compete internationally, and Kliti can go into a little bit more detail about that BOMA International stuff. All right, so that's my portion of this presentation. I will turn it over to Kliti, and he will go through the step-by-step process of what you'll experience going to the portal and submitting all your documents and criteria. Kliti?
Thank you, Sherrie. Good morning, everybody. Give me 1 second so I can screen share here. Okay. You all see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. So structure-wise, I'll go into what the TOBIs are, the do's and the don'ts. After this presentation, I'm going to go to our recognition portal. I'll do a bit of a demo as to how the application looks on that end. And the last item is I'll go to our main website and sort of highlight where your guides, your notes, the documentation, the material that's going to be the most helpful to you is. So without further ado, today is really about two things: why Toby matters and how you can actually win it. We'll keep this practical, and at the end, I'll show you exactly how to apply on the portal. So the Toby Awards are the highest recognition in commercial real estate. They're not about marketing, they're about how your building actually performs. We often say it is not a beauty contest. Most of you are already doing the work. Toby's is about proving it. This is a global platform. You're not just competing locally, you're competing with the best buildings across the country and internationally. And New York doesn't just participate, it competes to win. And I'm excited to support that. These are the types of buildings that usually compete in the Tobys. The reality is you're already operating in this tier. Toby is how you position yourself alongside them. So why do you want to participate? Well, this is where the Tobys become practical. It helps you in standing out in leasing, show your value to the ownership team, reward your property team, and signals excellence to the market. So how do we do this? Pretty simple. It's not complicated, but it is structured. And the buildings that follow the structure win. You first want to collect the information per the criteria. You apply on the portal. That's reviewed by the judges. And if everything goes to plan, you walk away with a cool trophy at the end. You start here in New York. If you win locally, you move on to the MAC, the Mid-Atlantic Conference, and then internationally. And you're judged by industry professionals, your peers. Oftentimes, you'll hear that the judges are from organizations or companies that you work alongside with. So what do the judges actually score? This is where most applicants misunderstand the Tobys. Judges are not just scoring effort, they're scoring proof. If it's not measurable, if it's not documented, you don't get the points. Now, one item to remember here is on the narrative sections. I get questions about using AI. AI is a good tool to use, but some of the judges are also really good. So you want to be mindful that your AI is not the only documentation or the only way you're producing the narrative. So you have to find that middle ground between you providing structure or creating structure with AI and ultimately delivering or writing down what the soul of the building is. The 7 sections, these are the 7 sections you'll complete. Each one has specific criteria, and success comes from following those requirements exactly. Later on, as I mentioned, I'll go into our website so you can see exactly where you find this information. But the building description, the operations and maintenance, life safety and security, training and education, energy, sustainability and wellness, tenant and community, these are the pillars of the Tobys. Now, where do the applicants lose points now? Great buildings lose all the time. And that's the one thing that I always start my conversation with. There's really, really good buildings that don't win because they sound like every other property. They don't quantify results and they don't connect the narrative to the proof. That's the difference between an average building and winning. So what does winning look like? Winning submissions are very clear. They tell a specific story backed by data and aligned perfectly with the criteria. There's no guessing for the judge. Remember, as you get into the regional and the international levels, these judges don't know what your building does or who you are. They're looking at what you've submitted. And if they get lost there, you're going to lose points. Now, one critical component of the Tobys is energy. This is one of the most important sections. If your documentation doesn't match your narrative, you will lose points quickly. And the Energy Star SCP is required. Obviously, a stamped SCP delivers more points. There's a few other non-negotiables for the Tobys. You must have an active BOMA 360 to participate regional and internationally. The deadline, as Sherrie mentioned, is January 15, 2027. One very important note here. Application does not mean designation. So you have to be very mindful and do the work ahead of the BOMA 360 application so that you can get a quick pass. If you're not able to pass BOMA 360, you will not be allowed to participate regionally and internationally. Hence, doing it ahead of time and not waiting until January 15th. It's equally important to be in the right category. You don't want to come to the next region and something's missed and the regional judges DQ you because you're in the wrong category. Additionally, each building must have 12 months of active operations, and you must also have your TOBY inspection verification form completed. Again, that's also to participate region. So what's the right approach to applying? Well, the most successful teams treat this like a project. They plan, they divide responsibilities, and build everything before entering the portal. I usually say to create, whether it's for BOMA 360 or the TOBYs, an external folder so that you can create a structure or a blueprint. And then when it's time to apply, you simply drag and drop or copy and paste the information onto the portal. If you remember one thing from this conversation, it's this. If it's not measurable, you don't get points. If it's not documented, it doesn't count. And if it's generic, you will lose. This is very important. With that said, let me transition to the demo. I'm going to stop screen sharing so I can move screens. And then reshare again. 1 second here. Okay. So you should be seeing my screen again now. When you go in the recognition portal, the very first thing you want to do is you go into buildings, my buildings, and you select your building. Obviously, these are examples or samples here. Let's take the first one. You want to go under actions, and under select actions, you'll see view TOBY entries. The next option is going to give you the locals or the different TOBYs that you're participating in. Let's take the local one, or once you add a new TOBY entry, as Sherrie said, you want to make sure that you select 2027, not 2026. We always operate for when the international TOBYs take place. So once you've added that, let's take this one here. You go to select actions, you edit, and you'll find all the sections and the subsections of the TOBYs. Very important here is that these bubbles here on the left that have a green check, when you start the application, it has a red cross, and it'll move from red to yellow to green. Obviously, it's self-explanatory that the more you complete it, the greener it'll seem. Where you see this criteria set here, once you complete everything, a bubble will show up here that says Submit Application. That bubble will not show up unless you complete every one of these items. Once you submit it, then it goes on to the judges. You don't have to do anything else. If you win locally and you move on to the regional TOBYs, there is a secondary date that you can upload or improve your application to compete regionally. This is very important to take the feedback from your judges locally and apply it to your application. You want to make any changes you can, because when you're competing at the regional and especially the international level, you're really competing against the best of the best. So do not hesitate to make improvements if you move past the local level. The last item I want to show to you is the tools to improve your TOBYs. So if you go to our main website, it's BOMA.org. You go into Build Programs, go to TOBY Awards, and this page currently shows our international nominees if you're curious, but also our winners last year. What you're looking for is the criteria and the judging forms. So if I scroll down here, you'll see our 2027 criteria listed here. And these judging forms are used by your judges to see what you have, what you don't have, including this the judging guide here. I highly recommend looking at this material here, because you'll see what the judges are looking for too, and that'll help you with your application. The last item here is the TOBY portal instructions. So as an applicant, you can select this one and it'll walk you through the demo that I just showed you. So I'll stop here, and if there's any questions, I welcome that.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kliti. Can you go back and pull up your screen again, please, and go back in the portal and just click through into one of the categories so we just can have eyes on what it looks like once you click into, say, energy or pick one.
Let's go to criteria here. Let's do office.
I mean, even in the recognition platform.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, just click into any one of these just so people can have
So this one is office.
Just to give an idea. Yep.
Yeah, you'll see different building information. This is a narrative. This is where you attach the information requested. I think Sherrie mentioned this already, but it's also very important to have as good quality as possible when you upload photos and documentation. You want to make this as easy as possible for the judges to look at. Obviously, each section or each subsection here will have a narrative section as well as an upload section. Again, I highly recommend looking at the portal or the criteria so that you can get acclimated with what's being required and what's being judged.
I will also just mention, so you saw in some of those areas, it tells you to upload 10 documents or 5 documents or however many items that it's requiring for uploading. If you only upload 1 or 2, or if you miss something, that's when you would see these green check marks. They would be yellow. And then if you don't submit and upload the 10 documents or whatever that specific area is asking for, it won't allow you to complete your submission. So you just need to really look to make sure that you're uploading and you're filling out each of those boxes with information to be able to complete your submission.
So it'll look like this when it's incomplete, yellow check boxes. And obviously, if you don't complete anything, it'll just be a red bubble with a cross.
Okay, wonderful. Any other questions that we can answer while you have us?
Can you discuss a little bit about the criteria in locally versus the international? Is it the same? Should we follow something different?
So the criteria for all the categories that you saw on both Sherrie's slide and that you have on international, the criteria is going to be identical. The only difference is for, I believe it was new construction, Sherrie, correct? Keep me honest here. And there was another category that's only at the Pinnacle level.
That's right. Hospitality, which is a new category this year.
Okay, understood. And then I know you mentioned, Sherrie, the deadline. You mentioned June 26th, and you also mentioned one in January. What's the January deadline versus the June 26th?
So if you win locally, you want to make sure that your building has BOMA 360. That is mandatory to participate regionally. If you already have BOMA 360, that January deadline doesn't apply to you. But if you don't have it, then your application by 50.
Just to clarify too, the locally here at the Pinnacle Awards, we do not require BOMA 360. But if you win and you plan to compete internationally, which we highly recommend you do, you will need the 360.
Understood. So the local award is the September event.
That's right. We have September 24th for our Pinnacle Awards. So you can make it through that without your BOMA 360. But once you pass that, you will need it.
Understood. Okay. And then one more question. Sherrie, I know you mentioned the marketing materials that you require for each building or nomination. When is that due by, and how do we submit that?
Yes. So that is the June deadline that you were describing. So all the information that I went through my slides, and then also what Kliti is going through here as far as utilizing the portal to submit information for building nominees, all of that material should be submitted by that end of June date. And So utilizing the portal for buildings, but all those marketing materials that I went over, sending those materials to me, to my email address. And I know that there's a few nominees that have come in. I will be sharing this video recording with all of the nominees just to make sure that you have this recording, step-by-step guide, and then all of the attachments, filling out those forms, and just reiterating all the materials that are needed. So you'll have my email to submit all that material to. I also do create a folder, a shared folder. So that's an easy way to upload information and save everything into a shared folder.
Okay, so those marketing materials you mentioned are emailed directly to you. They're not through the portal.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anything else out there?
Do we have anybody on the call who's done Toby's before?
Yep, I see Ray.
Yeah, we
Yes.
won back in 2022, I think, for new construction, and then operating building of the year as well in 2023. So
Yeah, I had operating building 2 years ago for up to 400,000 square feet. And so this year I'm going to try for historical building, give it a shot.
Wonderful. If nothing else is out there, well, first of all, thank you, Sherrie. Thank you, Kliti. That was great. As I said, as you work through the process, if you have any questions, if you need any help, Sherrie and I are here for anything you need. Don't hesitate to reach out. We want to make sure you're successful. We want to see you doing the best you can. We want to see you winning, going on and winning international. Kliti's talking about the best of the best. I think New York has a lot of the best of the best, so we want you there. With that being said, if there's nothing else, I want to wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and please, again, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help. So thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
you.
Thanks.